So the wait is over. The long-awaited anime that a lot of people been talking about for a while now. What I mean by that is, it's about 120 something chapters deep now manga-wise, and we all knew once it hit a certain point, this was gonna get an anime and a pretty huge push. I'm talking about Clover, Black Clover. Now, this series has been met with a lot of controversy between so many different aspects, one of which a lot of people say it rips off several different series. Another being people say it's generic, so on and so forth. We got the first episode. Let's talk about some of the positives about it. It was absolutely gorgeous. The animation, the art, it was gorgeous. It looked beautiful from start to finish. It was absolutely beautiful. So they put in work, you know what I'm saying? They made sure to make it look very presentable and nice. The only complaint you could probably argue was the chains from that one villain that they were fighting was CGI. It was somewhat noticeable at certain times, but it really wasn't a big deal. And honestly, again, art and animation was very solid. So good shit there. The one huge glaring problem immediately that I found, and this is something that is straight up due to the way they decided to execute the performance, is the main character Asta's voice. Let's start talking about that, because oh my gosh, it was like a car engine. It was like, I don't know what they were trying to do with it, but it was so annoying, and I really hope that it chills out. Now, I will say one thing is that a lot of people have complained about the character Asta for the majority of the manga as well, saying that he's too positive and he's too whatever, but like the anime took it to a whole other level of annoyance with his voice. It is just like he is constantly screaming, and the way it's done is like, yo, bro, Asta, you need a little bit of a Ritalin there, buddy. You need to chill the fuck out, because Asta's voice was just like, it was a no-go. Like, that was easily the worst thing about episode 1 of Black Clover, Asta's voice. It was annoying, and I know you're probably thinking like, it's just a voice. When you watch the episode, you will understand exactly what I mean, and I'm talking about the Japanese version. The English dub, I believe, will premiere 2 weeks from now, because the simul dubs is usually like a week or two behind, but we'll talk about that when the time comes as far as what they do with the dub. Maybe they could switch it up and make it bearable, but the Japanese version, and this is honestly one of the most annoying voices I've heard in Japanese anime, period, because most of the time I'm very fine with, you know, Japanese performances. It's a rarity that it really irks my nerves or something like that. This dude's voice was annoying. Now, getting that out the way, which again, that was a glaring problem of the episode. The plot, I mean, I forget, because I'm about 100 chapters deep into the manga. I'm not caught up. I'm about like a couple months worth behind, but the plot in the beginning, it's very, very basic. It's very shonen-esque. It's very similar to a lot of things you've seen before. No groundbreaking aspects for this first episode. This guy Asta, his rival Yuno, they were orphans, and they both have the same goal of being the Wizard King, essentially like the Hokage of their village, or I guess of this place, this magical place that they live in. And the thing is, Asta is pretty much like a Rock Lee or a Deku, which I don't give a fuck what anyone says. My Hero Academia and Black Clover, those authors were both inspired by Naruto, in my opinion, for these two series at the very least, because Deku, you know, he's quirkless for My Hero Academia. Black Clover, Asta, he's magicless. He doesn't have any magical abilities, and is like, yo, you know, but he trains hard. Again, like a Rock Lee. So in regards to like, if you're expecting something brand new and fresh, a fresh idea, whatever, you ain't gonna see it at the very least in the beginning of Black Clover, especially with episode 1. It was very basic. You know, it's pretty cool, but again, he's kind of like a Sasuke. He's very quiet, very talented. He doesn't really say too much. A lot of people love him and adore him, you know, opposed to Sasuke. Sasuke had like that vengeance thing going on. You know, it's just kind of quiet, and he just wants to help out, you know, his family, but he also wants to be the Wizard King from the get-go. So a little bit different from like a Sasuke type of character. But honestly, this episode, it wasn't the greatest in any means. I think towards the end it really got good. About when the capturing of Yuno happened, that's when the episode really kicked into high gear, because prior to that, it was a lot of setup and build up, which of course you need. It's the first episode. You gotta, you know, set up the world, which I will say another thing about Black Clover in this first episode at the very least, that it really gives you a broad idea of like, there's so many possibilities of what they could do world building wise with this seemingly medieval magical setting. So that's something that's really interesting about Black Clover as well. It's the world, and you know, I don't want to keep on making too many comparisons, but essentially in my eyes, Black Clover's biggest competitor is My Hero Academia for, like, you know, that #1 shonen in the West. Obviously in Japan, nothing's touching One Piece, so we don't even need to go there. But I think in comparison to My Hero Academia, one thing that I'll give Black Clover, especially just based off episode 1 alone, is, and maybe it's my own personal preference, the setting. My Hero Academia is kind of like the modern world with, you know, these quirks and superheroes, stuff like that. This one is a medieval type of setting, you know, olden days, but there's magic and there's so many endless possibilities. So I give Black Clover credit on that, especially with episode 1. It's like, there's this huge world, there's magicians, there's all sorts of shit. It's kind of cool in that aspect, but it still reminds me of when I very first read Black Clover. If you watch my manga video about Black Clover, I've made about 3 or 4 manga videos regarding Black Clover, and it still remains at the very least the beginning of Black Clover, and especially episode 1. It's very similar to anything you've seen shonen wise. If you've seen the Narutos, then you kind of got a grasp of what it is. Asta is kind of like a mixture, in my opinion, of like Naruto and Rock Lee. He has the things about Rock Lee where, you know, he doesn't have magic, he can't do things, but he's a hard worker, and he kind of has like Naruto's personality to a certain degree. It's just, especially in the anime, for whatever reason, they push it to make him a lot more annoying. And I hope they learn from that very quickly. It's a shame as well that episode 1, it seems as though, because from my memory, all of this was solved, this fight and this battle with Asta versus this guy with the chains or whatever. I believe that was all done in chapter 1, so it seems as though they were splitting up chapter 1 to kind of slow down the pacing. I think they're taking a cue from what they did with My Hero Academia first season, where it was kind of like chapter 1 was split up into 2 episodes, so they didn't resolve things. I will say another thing for manga readers, and I'm not going to spoil for anime onlys, but they foreshadowed something that wasn't revealed until like chapter 90 regarding Asta, and I won't say again, but if you caught it, then you know what I'm talking about. It was a very subtle thing, but they definitely showed something that I believe wasn't in chapter 1 of the manga. It didn't get revealed till like chapter 90. Towards the end, where you get to see, it was again something to be expected. Asta has no magic, but then something happens and a sword pops up in front of him with a grimoire. Another cool thing that I think that Black Clover introduced very nicely was the grimoires, these magical books where if you get selected to be like a wizard, I guess you could say, then you get a grimoire, and that helps with your magical abilities. It didn't get explained too much in episode 1. I'm imagining as the series goes on, episode 2 and forward, we'll get more of that. And I guess the parallels as well between the 2 main characters, because it seems as though at the very least in this episode is focusing in on these 2 guys, is that it's pretty much a Naruto and Sasuke situation. One is kind of worthless but works hard. One is very talented, but he's a mystery. And hey, if you look at how I am, you get what I'm trying to say. Very similar, but I will say, to give it credit, towards later in the series, it will change up and start finding its own path. But right now, it feels as though too soon, buddy. Naruto is still around. There's still a Boruto. And yeah, if I was to compare, especially based off episode 1 alone, it gives you a mixture of a Naruto and Fairy Tail. This is the exact same thing that I felt with the manga, except there's a couple of things different. Obviously, with anime, there's animation and art, which again, I said was beautiful. The main character's voice is really fucking annoying, like terribly annoying. One of the most annoying voices I've ever heard in anime. But is that enough to really make somebody stop watching Black Clover just based off of his voice alone? That could change throughout the series, so I think it's one of those things where with Black Clover, kind of got to give it a chance. I think episode 1 was fine, especially towards the end. It got really interesting and exciting, seeing when the action was going down, and you know, the talented gets captured while the weakling Asta got to throw in hands and shit. So kind of interesting there, and just overall seeing things is like, it's very generic, very shonen, but for some reason, and that's why I read 100 plus chapters, I still like it. I still like Black Clover. It reminds me of why I like shonen manga. It's just that it takes so many tropes that it's overbearing at times. And again, this first episode, it's like, it's kind of Naruto. Naruto meets Fairy Tail, which, take it or leave it, you know, some people, they absolutely hate Fairy Tail, they absolutely hate Naruto. If you like both of them, you're probably going to absolutely love and adore Black Clover. It's just Asta. Somebody put their hands around that little motherfucker's neck so he can stop talking and stop, not even talking, stop screaming. Everything is screaming. It's like, imagine if all of my reviews, the entire time I'm like, so yeah, I really like this chapter. Let me tell you why I like this chapter. This, you know what I'm saying? You'd be like, ForneverWorld, shut the fuck up, you know what I'm saying? But I'm kind of curious what you guys think. If you've seen Black Clover episode 1, if you're an anime only, this is your first experience with Black Clover, what did you think of it? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Is it too reminiscent of different series you've seen, or it's something really cool to you? And for manga readers, do you think they did it justice? I think, again, aside from Asta's voice, I would argue that I liked the way they presented the world of Black Clover and the characters with episode 1 more than the manga. But again, that's my own opinion on that. Also, Black Clover, are you going to keep going with it or whatever? I could see myself continuing on, reviewing it and talking about it. It just really depends on where it goes from here. I mean, they're pulling in Academia with a 13-episode season and breaking the first chapter into 2 episodes. So it's kind of like I would have preferred for them to smack first chapter, first episode, bam, would have been more of an impact. But that's just my thoughts on it. Your overall thoughts of Black Clover episode 1. You going to continue it or you dropping it? I'm going to keep going for right now. I like Black Clover. I know what it is. And I think if you understand what you're getting yourself into, you can't really be that disappointed. But that's all I have for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and stalk my Facebook to get more when the video ends. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day. Asta, your voice, fucking annoying, bro.